Well, hello there and welcome to the bathroom of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and you Stelfers for January 5th, the Day of Recovery. And here at the top of the page is a visual representation of the Day of Recovery where we have us an image of what could it be? Well, it's an assortment of what looks like gardening tools and such. You got your stakes and your weed block and a little trowel there. I don't know. That's my read on it. Now, is that a adequate representation of the Day of Recovery? Hey, who's to say? But maybe we'll make some kind of connotations as we get on with the read there, but not altogether all too important, the visual representational image there. Not when it's a January 5th and it's somebody's birthday today. No, what's important is wishing you a happy birthday, because I'm assuming it's your birthday if you're here. That being said, I don't know, maybe this video finds you late, and if that's the case, I just want to say I hope you had a happy birthday. But for those individuals who are just dropping by randomly or more ideally to celebrate the January 5th birthday, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the redirect, something I like to do around these here parts, and that's roll some dice. This is the DykASSt birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake, but I also do so, more importantly, for synchronicity's sake. And here I rolled a 2 and a 3 for 5. Now, what's synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, my friends, a lot of times we get out in the world and going about our everyday goings-ons, running errands, or the commute to the job, and we got the blinders on. That's right. We don't notice the things necessarily going on around us to any real fine degree, if you like. But that being said, I've heard it told that the universe or the powers that be will put things down in our path to help us realize our goals or aspirations. But if you don't know how to see those things, well, it probably follows that maybe we're going to take a little bit longer to get to our goals or aspirations. So this is an exercise in getting those blinders off and trying to identify a sign that we can't help mistake. That's right. Your daily numbers, something agreed upon with you and the universe, something that's going to be hard to miss. Now, you don't have to go with the numbers I rolled for you, but it is probably advisable you take your own set of dice so you can ascribe directional values to number sets and time limits with which to go in those directions. Once you've got all that figured out, pick a spot somewhere in town, I don't know, a nice park that you like, and set off from there with your direction and time value and get going. But like I said, get the blinders off. You want to start soaking things up like a sponge, because you never know. You might start to notice things that start creeping up all over the place, and the day might start to take on a theme with as much. And so you kind of want to take those on, start stacking up the coincidences, the synchronicities there. But so you set off on your first time limit, directional value as well, and then I don't know, maybe get to the end of it and you're not seeing anything out of the ordinary. Everything just seems to be everyday goings-ons, like I said. But hey, you know what? Maybe stop, compose yourself, look around. Hey, what's this you notice? Maybe you just so happen to be on, what is that? Boom, 23rd Avenue maybe, or 5th Avenue, more aptly. I would say take that as a sign you're on the right path. I know it's not just a glaring sign, but hey, I would take it as a sign you're on the right path. So roll yourself another time limit directional value and set off again there. And I don't know, maybe you're just doing that here and there and you're just not really seeing anything. So maybe you take a little bit of a break, say. Sit down on a concrete, I don't know, dividing wall there if you like, and you just kind of take the day in a little bit. But hey, maybe you notice something in the crack of the sidewalk there at your feet, like a little glint of pink amidst a sidewalk of gray. And what's this? Oh, maybe it's just, I don't know, a space pen. It might just so happen that you lost one years ago and you're just like, man, I can't believe I lost that thing. And boom, here you go. You found one there in the crack of the sidewalk. You had to remove some of the dirt off of it. I would say that stands as a day of recovery. It just so happens to be a true story there in many a case there. I necessarily wasn't rolling dice, but hey, I did find a space pen and I had lost one earlier. And it kind of pissed me off because these things aren't cheap. That's right. So I don't know. I think you kind of get the point. Start seeing things line up for you, things coming back to you perhaps, or maybe the day just starts to take on a theme. Maybe you start seeing garden tools every which over the place, daily representational image there notwithstanding. It might not even be actual items themselves. It might just be like an advertisement on the the side of a building for a garden trowel, or, Scott's turf builder. You just start seeing all these garden things everywhere. I think you get the point. So just get on out there, start stacking up some synchronicities if you can. And if you see, taste, touch, smell any kind of magic like that, your numbers keep popping up over the place, hey, I think you understand why I mentioned it. It's just nice to see and be reaffirmed that the universe is with us on our path. In any event, hey, that's synchronicity if you like, so let's get on with the birthday read. Your month is January, your day is the 5th, and your sign is 14 to 16 degrees Capricorn of the Capricorn II period specifically. And your quality and element is Cardinal Earth. All right, January 5th, the day of recovery. All right, recovery is a central and recurrent theme in the lives of January 5 people. And not ones to be kept down for very long. Those born on this day have a surprising capacity for comebacks, gradual or dramatic recoveries from disadvantageous situations, either of a personal or social nature. On the personal side, this may mean overcoming illness, catastrophe, or just plain bad luck. And on the social side, regaining lost status or leading a group to restore its standing. Needless to say, January 5 people are very resilient. They bounce back from injuries and accidents of all types, and even more impressive is their ability to recover from emotional disappointments or rejection. And this is due ultimately to their bedrock of self-confidence and their capacity to leave the past behind and move on. And this does not mean that they are superficial individuals for whom loss has little meaning. On the contrary, they are highly involved, committed people, and therefore the wonder is even greater that they can recover from setbacks which are doubtless deeply felt. And part of their strength lies in acceptance of the fact that one cannot win all of the time. And January 5 people are extremely resourceful and know how to bring the best out in people. And this holds true in their family, social life, and professional life. Thus, they are well suited for group endeavors, perhaps as leaders where they can better exert their positive influence. They must be careful, however, not to be too optimistic in their outlook and too confident that any difficult situation can be solved through rational means. And due to their cheerfulness and positive orientation, they may overlook or ignore powerful, irrational, and subconscious drives in their fellow human beings, which can do great harm to them personally or the groups to which they belong. Another problem for January 5 people is that they can grow complacent after they have overcome challenges and uncertainty and established stability in their lives. And some degree of relaxation is warranted and only natural, but they should not give up spontaneity, creativity, and spiritual growth in the process. And personal considerations often mean less and less for January 5 people as they grow older. So much do they come to identify with their cause. However, they must, when necessary, find the courage to follow the promptings of their heart, even if it means letting go of a cherished self-image or comfortable role. Okay, how about that for a pretty interesting breakdown? It was a little bit narrow a focus, but I'd say within that narrow focus, they kind of expanded quite a bit. I often like to say that, and that's been happening for the past few weeks here. But maybe it's just a little bit of a, a Capricorn thing there. Who's to say? But hey, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I like to provide a little bit of notes or a commentary on what we just read there. Maybe provide some kind of context on occasion or things I found interesting, and sometimes make connections with days previous, kind of like the narrow focus theme I talked about there. So let's dive into it, shall we? January 5, the day of recovery. Recovery is the central theme to the day, and you're said to not only be kept down for you're not going to be kept down for very long when or if disadvantageous situations befall you. And the reading lists anything from illness or catastrophe to on the personal side, or the likes of a loss of status on the social side, which I'd assume also carries over to leadership on the occupation or career side. You're also said to recover quickly from injuries as well, and personal rejections, due in large part to your self-confidence and ability to move on from the past, all right, which may be one of the most desirable traits, considering how often the book suggests people do just that, all right, more work toward moving on. All right, and the likes of which, with regard to moving on, the reading claims the key is acceptance of the idea that one cannot win all of the time. And it's a novel way of looking at it that I don't think I had ever considered myself. Now, obviously, the struggle to move on is probably pretty common for just about any given individual, right? What's interesting to note, however, is just how many Capricorns who don't seem to recognize loss have come up in this period. Winning is the name of the game for them. But here, maybe not the case for you there, it sounds like. So this purported character trait of yours is something of an anomaly in that respect. Also a seeming rarity insofar as it hasn't necessarily been mentioned as far as I can recall for this period. And that goes as well for this ability to bring out the best in people, perhaps owing to your positive outlook. Who's to say? But as the reading warns, care should be taken with the optimism that you have in your life here, as the reality of, or at least the truer reality of things, it may escape you if you do lean into it too hard. And it's actually an opposing trait, but a similar circumstance to those born on the 3rd of this month, who should, as the reading put it, avoid falling victim to so much optimism. Since we don't see optimism as a negative, perhaps measured with its appreciation there. So there's like a dynamic there. Sometimes they warn against it, and sometimes they advise that they need to do more of it. Here for you, I just thought it was kind of interesting. Don't befall it, but then the other person, like, you need to dive into it more so. It was interesting that it was so close together, but such a shift in that particular dynamic, especially with the advice of as much. It's also of interest that such a shift in personality is present in close proximity, like I said there. Warnings of complacency with or at least once success has risen in your life, and disassociation with personal considerations for as much. That seems to come up here with the Capricorn a little bit. They focus so much on their career that their personal life kind of goes in the trash. They aren't really focused on it too much, which I'd say kind of it's kind of a disappointment. You know, you'd like to think that some people are out there chasing their dreams and stuff. And they might argue, well, my dream is my career and such, but I think that kind of gets away from the point they're trying to make. I think they put all their energy into this thing because it's kind of all they have. It's not necessarily a personal aspiration. So I found that interesting. That comes up for you to some extent too. But that said, this was one of the shorter birthday breakdowns, and like I said, kind of narrow focus. But I'd say it wasn't any less valuable, and it was just as interesting as any other, I would say. But all told, that has been your birthday breakdown, so let's move on to your numbers and your planets. All right, those born on the 5th of the month are ruled by the number 5, and by the speedy planet Mercury, which symbolizes quickness of thought and change. And since Saturn rules Capricorn, January 5, people come under the influence of a Mercury-Saturn connection, which lends seriousness and authority to their endeavors. And whatever knocks or pitfalls those ruled by the number 5 encounter, they usually recover quickly, which is, of course, particularly true for those born on January 5. All right, it may seem like they personalize this one for you, but not really. You know, they just kind of threw January 5 at the end of it. It's kind of a copy-paste job to a certain extent. I think they added there a little bit just for another added facet, but again, it's kind of boilerplate. So let's see what I had to say about it outside of what I just said here. All right, see if I can add a little bit of value to it for you. Then number 5 in the speedy planet Mercury for quickness of thought and change, and a co-rulership with the constrictive planet Saturn. And while it isn't mentioned here, it's elsewhere said in the book that Mercury is said to impart a vitality, or vivality perhaps, an impulse to one's endeavors, in addition to attention to detail, as well as a love for puzzles and games. And that little interesting note there, I think it's only actually come up or been mentioned one other time. So I had to go to the back of the book for that in the planet breakdown for you. But Saturn, with its dark, cold, and fatal force, it imparts structure, taking on responsibility for one's actions, and strong personal values. So it's one of the more conservative planets. And during the Sagittarius Capricorn cusp, with the planet Saturn and Jupiter in conflict there, it was said that it caused a lot of frustration with folks when it came up, and a lot of conflict as well. By and large, I pick up more of a Mercury influence than a Saturn here, as they kind of didn't really dive into much. So who's to say if there is a little bit of a conflict there? Because Saturn seemed to conflict with just about everything, except for some of the other dynamic planets, which kind of curbed that energy. But again, they didn't really make too much mention of it here. And I kind of mentioned the conflicts befalling a lot of other people who were under other planets' rulerships. But that doesn't necessarily seem the case here, like I said, owing mostly to Mercury. But the section relates precious little with regard to how the two may influence you specifically, which can also be said that the last number 5 day. I dove back in the book to see if there was something else I could pull from that, and there was nothing there either, really. But perhaps that's just as well, considering in most cases Saturn lends frustration and conflict, like I said. So perhaps no news is good news. Maybe that's the takeaway. In either event, you're going to come away with a speedy recovery because of Mars, because of Mercury. So I would take that for, if anything. Right? That's the value to take from it. You're going to recover quick. So that's it. That's been your numbers and your planets. A little disjointed there. I was skipping lines and such. But hey, let's pick it up with your tarot. That's right, your tarot card. It's one of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies, if you like, but hey, it's here in the book. It's your birthday. We don't have to take it home with us to start dealing out the cards and predicting our future, or however tarot cards may be used these days, or all days, I don't know. So let's get into it, see what it has to say. We can sometimes make some kind of connections to the breakdown, interestingly enough. So let's get into it here. The 5th card of the major arcana is the Hierophant, an interpreter of sacred mysteries who is symbolic of human knowledge and understanding, as well as faith. And his knowledge is esoteric, and he has authority over things unseen. And favorable traits conferred by this card are self-assuredness and insight. And unfavorable traits include moralizing, bombast, and dogmatism. And thus, January 5 people must be careful of being too pompous in their attitudes. All right. Once again, a little bit of a copy-paste job here, but they did personalize it there a little bit for you at the end. A lot of times they don't do even that. That's what do I have to say about your tarot card here? The Hierophant, or the priest, if you like, in more conventional terms, for interpreting sacred mysteries, as they said, human understanding and faith, and self-assuredness and insight, as part of this eclectic knowledge, or was it esoteric knowledge, rather. As for the negatives, you get a direct warning of being pompous, all right? I don't think that's come up before, though it may have in another term. And perhaps that owes to this bedrock of self-confidence that they said you allows you to move on, maybe coupled with the resourcefulness you use to help bring out the best in people. I don't know. Perhaps that builds up your self-confidence even more. Some folks may see issue with being told what you think is best, but as cheerful and optimistic a person, as the breakdown said you were, I'm surprised pompous is the word that they use to describe that. But I could see how this card seems very apt to everything that they were describing there, at least in the breakdown. Especially considering how one can even be optimistic these days may seem like a sacred mystery. That's right. But yeah, I would also say that pompous aspect, it kind of leans in with the moralizing and bombast and the dogmatism. And it's interesting, the dogmatism, especially since the Hierophant is the priest, right? That's right. So, amen. That's what I'd say about your tarot. So let's move on to your health. All right, show of health. Let's see what we got here. Those born on January 5 have a lot going on health-wise because of their capacity to recover from physical and psychological setbacks. And yet this must not become a rationale for avoiding the practice of preventative health. They must remember that if they remain vigilant and detect illness in the early stages, such maladies can be treated far more successfully. And indeed, by keeping themselves physically fit through regular exercise and eating sensibly, e.g., limiting themselves physically fit through their regular exercise. And I skipped a line. E.g., limiting intake of animal fat, dairy, and sugar. All right, that sounds better. And getting enough sleep. All right, they may be able to avoid many illnesses altogether through such practices. Again, it is crucial that January 5 people do not become overconfident about their health and resiliency. All right, there. Minor hiccup on my part. Retreading lines today. How about that? The day of retread, not recovery. There we go. What do I have to say about your health? Don't let your ability to recover build a false sense of immunity. I like that idea there. Regular exercise, sensible diet with what seems to be a common Capricorn through line here. Or Capricorn diet anyway, with the regulating the animal fat and the sugar. They often bring up non-bleached white flour, other things like that. And also getting enough sleep. That's been popping up a lot here the past few days for the Capricorn II period, I would say. And so I say that because it's not often mentioned. So maybe take note. You may be an individual that needs their sleep. There was one individual in the book, and it only happened one time. It said they need at least 10 hours a night. And I'm just like, how do they know that? How's that dictated by the stars? But you know what? It was so specific. I don't know. There might be some kernel of truth to it. Who's to say? So what else do we have here? The skeleton and the veins are also a Capricorn body area. Not mentioned today, but I would say be sure to take care of those two however you do that. To say maybe just take your calcium supplements for your skeleton and don't eat too much cholesterol on account of the veins. That must be the animal fat thing. It'd be nice if they put in a little context sometimes, so we have to try to connect the dots to try to figure out why they're bringing these things up. But in any event, I suppose a little bit of detective work is maybe all it takes. So that said, that's been your health. Let's move on to some advice. All right. Remember to remain flexible and spontaneous, all right? You may not have it all figured out. And do not be afraid to ask for help or guidance from others. And guard what keeps life worth living. All right, yeah. What did I have to say about the advice? It's always kind of short and sweet, but like I think they have a lot of value in there a lot of times. And today, I'd say they keep up with that trend, so at least in my opinion. So what do we got here? Remain flexible and spontaneous. Ostensibly, the warning of complacency is the real risk, or it can have a dramatic effect. So keep pressing forward after a recovery. That's right. What else do we have here? You may not have it all figured out. Rationality and resourcefulness coupled with a positive outlook. It may be a great place to come from, but for someone who recovery is a life theme, you probably know better, all right? Or at least you know better than some that you can still end up on your ass, okay? That's right. If you've had to recover quite a bit, you know all too well, I would say. They also say they also said don't be afraid to ask for help, all right? Believe it or not, a lot of Capricorns don't like to, all right? They're thinking all the buck stops with them, so there you go. But get up from the ground once in a while in the slip example, all right? You need help to get up off the ground. Even those with a good head and a positive outlook do well with help. All right. It's also a key facet of being resourceful. I said you're resourceful. All right. So don't neglect that. And many hands make light work, right? As the parable goes, I believe it's a parable. Guard what keeps life worth living, they said. So perhaps owing to this mention of personal considerations as you get older and to identify more with your cause specifically and not so much your own personal aspirations, if they exist. I think that might be the problem there, is you don't have an ultimate purpose, and that's important. We'll get to that here in a minute. So don't let it define you as much, and you can play your own part in defining it. If it's even something that you need in your life, that other organization that you dedicate all your time to. So guard what keeps life worth living. I would, maybe you think it's that organization, and maybe it is, but I think they're trying to make the argument, and I appreciate the argument, that there's something else out there for you, and once you find it, you gotta take hold and guard it. We'll see. All right, let's. So that's been your advice. Let's move on to your meditation. That's right. It's your birthday. You get a meditation. All right, here we go. The world may be but a set of symbols for a higher form of existence. Oh, I like this one. Though I don't have a read on it, or if it's good for you or not. Let's assume it is, because so many of the other ones have been. The world may be but a set of symbols for a higher form of existence. All right, there's your meditation. Even if I had an interpretation or a spin on it, I wouldn't relate it to you because it's your birthday, your meditation. That's right. It wouldn't do you any good if I told you what I thought about it. So that's for you to pontificate on as we move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. Or maybe you do that after the fact. Yeah, your strengths and weaknesses. Let's hold up the old objective mirror and see where we got the bulk and ostensibly where we may be wanting, where we're atrophied, if you like. That's right, your strengths and your weaknesses. Your strengths: you're serious, you're resilient, and you're resourceful. All right. I think we knew those ones. That's right. Especially resourceful. Drill down on that a couple times. But your weaknesses. Oh, let's flip that objective mirror around to the side that blows up your face there and shows off all the things you may be a little insecure about superficially there. That's right. Your weaknesses. You're overconfident. You're stuck. And you're complacent. Oh, gotta watch out for getting stuck. That's right. Overconfident, too, and complacent. I like to argue a lot of times that our weaknesses, they might just be strengths, depending on the situation. All right. Overconfidence, I would say, it's kind of looked down upon, right? But in some cases, you might need to be a little overconfident. All right. Get them bullies to back down, especially if they maybe got a weapon on them and you got nothing. A little overconfidence might be your weapon, right? That's right. So that particular situation might be a strength. And I've seen words and terms and ideas switch between strengths and weaknesses before. That being said, if these are things that you think you need to improve upon, you're overconfident, stuck, and complacent, I would argue your strengths are going to help you do as much. You're serious, resilient, and resourceful. Well, heck, just resourceful is going to help you get there. Resilient means you're going to follow through. So, and if you're serious about it, well, obviously, that's almost the same as resilient almost, all right? But in any event, that being said, a lot of people might want to get rid of the weaknesses, but I would say maybe don't get rid of them altogether because they make us who we are. All right. So having relayed your strengths and weaknesses, let's move on to those born on this day. And we get into those born on this day. Something I like to do is approach this from the idea of trying to figure out our passions. Because too often in life I get out in the world and meet folks and ask them what they do, and more importantly, if they like it, and they don't. And I think, it's perfectly understandable. You get out of school, you got to get right into a job to make the ends meet. And, it's just something we're getting into. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what we like to do. And so we just roll out of bed every day, start punching the clock, and maybe we just start climbing that corporate ladder, and it gets kind of easy, and we're just locked in, right? But at the root of it, there's a fatal flaw there, and it was just that it was something that we had no passion for. And I think it's important we know what our passions are, and we're kind of striving after them to some extent. so that we're rolling out of bed in the morning, kind of eager to get on with our day, and we're finding life fulfilling. Because I think that's what makes it at least tolerable, right? I mean, we got to enjoy ourselves while we're here, I would argue. And so I think this is the perfect opportunity to not only see what other folks who share your birthday did and who they are, but maybe we can take some inspiration from as much to kind of figure out our own passions, assuming you don't have them, our own purpose. But if you do, hey, it's just interesting to see what lottery you drew. So let's dive in with that particular idea in mind. All right, we start off with Alvin Ailey, a New York dancer, choreographer, and dance company founder. We also have Konrad Adenauer, West German chancellor and leader of the German economic political post-World War II recovery. That's right. We also have Umberto Eco, an Italian symbiotics professor and a novelist of the name of the Rose. We also have Robert Duvall, the film and TV actor of Lonesome Dove fame. We also have Diane Keaton, a film actress. Alfred Brendel, the pianist. It says Beethoven, and Schubert, interpreter. We have Walter Mondale, the U.S. Vice President and Minnesota Senator and presidential candidate. We also have Chuck Noll, a football coach and fifth in all-time wins, and he led Pittsburgh to 4 Super Bowl titles. Day of recovery, right? Here we go, another one. We got Jimmy Page, the guitarist and songwriter of Led Zeppelin fame. Jim Otto, this is 00. It must have been his number, I'm assuming, because he was the durable Oakland Raiders football center. An exceptionally long career and a Hall of Famer. Paramahansa Yogananda, I'm sure I butchered that. We'll make up for that there if I remember. Indian spiritual leader and writer of Autobiography of a Yogi. We also have Raisa Gorbachev, a Russian sociology professor and wife to Mikhail. We also have Juan Carlos, a Spanish 20th century king. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, a Pakistan president and prime minister, and a founder of the Pakistan People's Party, and overthrown by a coup, it says, later executed, and father of Benazir. We also have Frederic Dürrenmatt, a Swiss playwright, W.G. Snodgrass, a poet, Erica Morini, a violinist. The names today are killing me here. I think I'm doing all right, though. We also have Zebulon M. Pike, a U.S. Army officer and an explorer. And he's the Pikes Peak namesake. I want to say I know where that is, but I'm not quite sure. And died at the age of 34. Interesting. Quite a bit that he did in just such a short amount of time. We also have Arianis Joy Witkins, an economist and a statistician. And Edith Custer, a publisher of Mercury Hour. And I would say maybe I recognize 2 names in there, maybe 3. And 2 of them were actors, Robert Duvall and Diane Keaton. And the other ones, no idea. But hey, I know I butchered a lot of names in there, or I think I did at least. I think I did a pretty good job, though. But hey, let's do some butchering on my end, because it's not done in malice. It's just hooked on phonics. It doesn't often work for me with some of the names they throw at me. Most times, matter of fact. That having been said, hey, I don't know if you took much inspiration from these kinds of things. I know it's a big-ass tall order, and I never know what to expect when we get into it, because I don't often read them before I dive in. Obviously. But that being said, you know what? If I can wish for you for anything on your birthday, it's that you're getting out there and figuring out your passion, or you already have it. Because like I said, I think it's important we're jumping out of bed in the morning to get on with our day and eager to get on with it and just chase it down. And if anything, hey, maybe me bringing it up, ideally it just puts the bug in your ear about it and gets you busy, gets you cooking something up to stir the fires of as much. Because it takes time and effort to carve that kind of stuff out and figure out what our passions are, or if we even haven't figured out, maybe how to make them financially viable. That's right, you got to put in a lot of work. So hey, you know what, if anything I wish for you, like I said, you start getting after it. That being said, that essentially rounds out your birthday read today, except to say your season is winter, your sign, once again, is Capricorn. The Capricorn II period specifically, and your quality and elements is Cardinal Earth. And what does that mean? Well, that's a whole different video altogether. I'll leave it at the end there for you if you're interested in diving in. But this has been January 5th, the day of recovery. Don't know that we made a connotation with the garden tools and such, but hey, like I said, not altogether all too important. This has been The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and you selfies. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description if you're interested in picking up a copy, getting on with the read a little bit quicker than I could for you. But hey, this makes an excellent coffee table book, let me tell you. You're going to break this thing out if you have company over, get the party started right. Or wrong, who's to say? It's going to get the conversation flowing regardless, all right? With that having been said, that's not altogether all too important. What is important, like I said at the top, wishing you a happy birthday. So once again, happy birthday. And for everybody else who joined us randomly or to celebrate, I just want to say thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed yourself and hope to see you for your birthday read. Well, lest I forget, your daily numbers. That's right. 2 and a 3 for a 5. And just so happens it lined up synchronous. It doesn't happen all the time, folks. Go watch some of the other birthdays. It doesn't always happen. So there you go. And then my true to life space pen story. I don't often bring ones that I have of my own. So there you go. A little personality to it. But you know what? I just want to thank you for your time. Let me join you here. Celebrate your birthday with you. And take care of yourselves. Once more. Happy birthday. Keep recovering, all right? That's right. Don't be pompous, like they said. All right, happy birthday.